September 9th in Trenton, New Jersey, played host to a Glory 33. And looking over the card for Glory 33, a really stacked card, not just on the main card, but also for the Super Fight Series, as I will go over all of the fights that happened there in Glory 33 in New Jersey. Starting first with the Super Fight Series, there were two bonus fights if you tuned in live to the UFC Fight Pass for that portion of the card. And getting to the part that weren't bonus fights, starting first in the featherweight division, that was officially the first fight if you go to the Glory Kickboxing website, and that was Kevin Van Nostrand, as he was battling Moore. And for Moore, he just kind of got off to a bad start. I think they mentioned this may have been a short notice fight for David Moore, also making his Glory debut against a guy who has a lot of potential in Kevin Van Nostrand. And he just took it right to David Moore from the start. And towards the end of the first round, you could see Moore didn't really want much more, no pun intended there. And the fight did go into the second round, but Van Nostrand was just all over him. And eventually he got the knockdowns there to get the fight. And that's Van Nostrand's style. He comes right at you full force, and you got to be ready to handle it. And if you can't, you're going to end up knocked out. That's the type of style. Very fast, very furious, a lot of high volume, a lot of high power, and just a lot of different combinations too. He's a guy, if you saw in his fight with Giga, can fade a little bit, but he's definitely going to give you a run for your money in those first two rounds. And if you're not able to handle it, you're going to get knocked out. So he's a guy in the featherweight division that, even with beating someone making their Glory debut and coming in on short notice, is still a guy to look out for. He had a very competitive fight with Giga, who obviously we'll talk about here in a few minutes, who was in the featherweight tournament. But this division's starting to kind of heat things up. I know some people think that Glory's featherweight division doesn't have some of the best guys in the world, but I think it's one of their more competitive divisions that they have. And now with Van Roosmalen at least challenging for the title, I don't know if he loses how long he'll stick around at featherweight, but that's just another guy to add to their featherweight division. In the welterweight division, longtime Glory welterweight Francis Ambane took on Daniel Morales. Morales had a very good first round, not a typical Daniel Morales round though. He was really kind of keep himself composed, was throwing nice combos, good head movement, and was really a more technical Daniel Morales than we had seen in his previous two fights against Casey Green. And of course, he also took on Francis Ambane back at Glory 30. Not as reckless as we have seen, and I kind of like that Daniel Morales. I like the fact that he can do both. I thought that was a nice kind of change of pace. And then in round two, I'm not sure what it was, but a switch flipped there for Francis Ambane. It's like he figured out everything that Morales was doing, and he upped his own performance and just really started throwing a bevy of combinations and did a good job of not really getting hit a lot, and just he figured everything out. And to me, those final two rounds were maybe the best two rounds I've ever seen Francois Ambane have inside the Glory ring. And I've seen a lot of Francois' fights. I mean, he's been fighting in Glory since Glory 9. So this is a guy who's been around for a while, and he's fought some of the best in the division, including Raymond Daniels and Joseph Valtellini. So I just thought this was incredible. If he can have fights like this, then he could be a force to be reckoned with. I mean, only one time in his Glory career has he won back-to-back fights, and that was, I'm sorry, no, he's never won back-to-back fights in Glory. The Glory website, for some reason, has the first-round win at Glory 32 over the Glory 31. I don't know, they mixed it up. But anyways, so I think this is a good building block for him moving forward. I think he's a guy that if he can fight like this, he can give some people problems in the welterweight division. But definitely a very good performance. And for Morales, I know he now sits at 0-3 in Glory, but he's fought good fighters. I mean, Ambane twice, and now Casey Green. Most of the, I would say the Casey Green one, Casey Green was a little bigger than him, but he still had a little success. The first fight against Ambane, That was a very close decision. And this time around, I don't know. It's the second he didn't make it. Ambing obviously made those adjustments and had a great round 2 and 3, but Morales didn't. So I don't know if Glory has to let him go, kind of have him work himself back up. But the guy definitely has talent. I believe he's only 26, 27. So I mean, he's still a relatively young guy. I think he has a lot of potential, but maybe he has to work on some things outside the organization before Glory brings him back in. The next fight of the evening was part of the women's super bantamweight Grand Prix tournament to crown the first ever Glory women's champion. Longtime veteran of the female circuit coming out of Germany, that being Daniela Graf, with a 24-4 record coming into this fight. She was supposed to take on former Bellator champion Zola Frostow, who also was undefeated in kickboxing at 4-0, but also a talented striker nonetheless. Just weeks before the event, she had to cancel the fight. Graf was ready to go, so they tabbed injury replacement Jessica Gladstone, who, again, coming on short notice, had a record of 5-6 entering the bout against a much more experienced Daniela Graf. However, Gladstone, the much bigger opponent. I believe Graf was listed at around 5'3", 5'4", Gladstone at 5'8". I'm not sure quite what the reach advantage was, but I'm sure it was pretty significant in favor of Gladstone. And Gladstone, to me, just put on an excellent display. Round 1, she was mainly keeping Graf at bay with some really nice kicks to the body. In round 2 and 3, she was starting to, I thought, assert herself in the clinch game. When Graf was trying to come inside to land some punches, she landed some really good knees, especially in round 3. The body kicks did continue, but she also mixed in more boxing as the fight went on, and I think she got more comfortable and was figuring out the range even more with her boxing. And Graf, even though she was the more experienced fighter and had a full camp, just could not figure out how to get inside on Jessica Gladstone, and obviously Gladstone a much different opponent than what she would have been facing had Zola Frostow stayed in that fight. And this was a huge upset, in my opinion. And one of the couple upsets, as we'll get to the main card in just a minute, for fighters coming out of from Canada. But excellent performance by Jessica Gladstone, and she now moves on to the next round of the tournament, where she will be taking on Tiffany Van Soest, a.k.a. Tiffany Time Bomb. A lot of hype around Tiffany, former Lion Fights champion. So Tiffany's going to have her work cut out for her. Of course, Tiffany makes her debut in Invicta this weekend on the UFC Fight Pass, only her second ever mixed martial arts fight. So definitely, if you're a fan of Tiffany Time Bomb, you want to check that out this weekend on Fight Pass for Invicta FC 19. Gladstone, great performance, and I'm really looking forward to what she could do. Her size at 121 is incredible. She's definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with in this tournament, and hopefully, obviously, with building a champion, they can build a division, but she's someone I'd like to see more of, because on 2 weeks' notice against the experienced fighter like Graf, she did amazing. Next fight of the evening was in the heavyweight division, as former guest Chi Lewis-Parry continued action just about a little over a month from his last win back at Glory 32, as he took on late notice injury replacement Anthony MacDonald. MacDonald filling in for Xavier Vigny, which as of right now is Chi Lewis-Parry's only loss ever in kickboxing as well as Glory. And I'm sure that probably disappointed Chi a little bit. And speaking of Chi, we'll get to, I'm going to queue up an interview. He'll be joining me here on the line in just a few moments, so stay tuned for that. But in the first round, Chi, I don't know if he wasn't respecting Anthony MacDonald, or if he was just kind of trying to figure out what MacDonald was bringing to the table. Obviously not the opponent that he was preparing for. Also maybe coming from a southpaw stance. MacDonald threw a lot of kicks, especially to the body. And after that first round, where Chi was relatively active, you heard his corner saying, "All right, you just gotta step it up. You see what he's featuring now, and let's go to work here." And that's exactly what he did. He started going to work, landing some really nice knees, especially to the body, that really started to wear down and obviously hurt MacDonald. And eventually he was able to get some great knockdowns. I believe he had 2, and the second one you could tell MacDonald was not going to get up, and that was all she wrote. And another knockout victory for Chi Lewis-Parry. Wasn't the most flawless victory he's had in Glory, but he got the job done. He got the knockout. It was against a guy in short notice, which is always tricky. And I'm looking forward to talking with him about this fight, what he expects next, what he thinks about what's going on in the heavyweight division, and of course some other things with his training partners there at AKA in San Jose. So I'll get to that in just a minute there, as I got to get to the main event of the Super Fight Series and what was a controversial win here for Jason Wilness, as he is now the new Glory middleweight champion, as he defeats Simon Marcus by a third-round knockout. And the reason I say it's controversial is because the first round, Simon Marcus, definitely putting it to Jason Wilness, was being very active, in and out. Wilness had a tough time landing a lot of substantial shots in that first round, but he was doing a good job of covering up. Even though shots were landing, he wasn't getting rocked. He wasn't getting shots weren't bruising him or anything like that. But Marcus was definitely the aggressor, was definitely throwing more output there, and definitely to me won that first round. In the second round, more of the same. Wilness started to get the timing down a little more. Marcus sometimes can get cocky, leave his head out there a little more than he should, doesn't always put his hands up. And Wilness was hitting him with some good shots. And towards the end of the round, Wilness was able to get Marcus into one of the corners of the ring. Marcus was kind of doing for fans that watch mixed martial arts, Anderson Silva against Chris Weidman, was doing, or even a rope-a-dope Muhammad Ali thing, was kind of moving his head around saying, oh, you can't touch me and stuff like that. And Wilness was landing with a lot of these shots, and the referee stepped in and declared it a knockdown, as I'm using air quotes if you're not watching the version on YouTube. And I did not like that. He gave him an 8 count, which counted as a knockdown, which means that round was scored a 10-8 in favor of Jason Wilness. And while shots were landing, absolutely, I think if you actually look at the situation, you can tell Marcus is not hurt. He's not in danger of being dropped. Now, yeah, he was not defending himself intelligently. That's absolutely true. But he clearly was not close to falling down or close to getting knocked out. And I think that was a very bad judgment call by a referee in the championship fight. I did not like that. In round 3, because of that knockdown, that controversial knockdown call, Marcus came out even more aggressive in the third round, got himself caught, knocked down 2 times, and then the third time, which ended up being the final knockout, was kind of like a stumbling, kind of him walking away. He wasn't fully knocked down, but the referee came in, again, waved off the fight. Again, another controversial decision. That one I wasn't as mad at as that one ending the second round, but still, again, in a championship fight, you gotta let these things play out a little more. I mean, there are a lot of stakes are on the line, a lot of money is on the line, and I think the referee made some poor calls in a really big time fight. And I don't think they've ever been to New Jersey before. This could impact their decision to go again, potentially at least have this referee be assigned. But I think those are something to look at. I mean, the referee definitely made calls that affected the performance of Simon Marcus. And regardless whether you think the calls were right or not, that's how it played out. And while the referee has a lot on his plate, don't get me wrong, it's hard to sometimes judge a knockout, and you're seeing a guy getting hit 5 or 6 times repeatedly with shots. I can see why he stepped in. I see the referee side of things. Don't get me wrong, I'm not ignorant to that. But if you actually are looking closely, and not even that replay time, I'm talking real time, you can tell Simon Marcus is messing around and moving his head around. You can tell that. So I don't know how the referee missed that. This is the final knockdown. Again, I can give him a little more leeway, but to me he kind of stumbled from the thing. I think maybe more a trip. I would have liked to see that continue. Again, this is a championship fight, but all credit in the world to Jason Wilness. I mean, it is not his fault for any referee error whatsoever. I mean, he did what he was supposed to do, and that's kickbox, and that's what he did. And he was able to weather that early storm by Simon Marcus and knock out the champ. Very impressive. I hope we see a rematch. I know there's a middleweight tournament coming up next month for Glory 34 in Denver. However, I would like to see Simon Marcus get a shot at Jason Wilness first. I think he deserves that and deserves another run at it. And hopefully, I don't think it'll happen here in 2016, but I'd like to see it in Simon Marcus's hometown of Toronto. I really think they got to bring a kickboxing event to Canada. There's a lot of Canadian fighters really starting to come up, and I think that it's about time they come to Canada. Of course, again, I would love for them to come here in Detroit, close enough to Canada. But if they can come to Toronto, I can make the drive there or take the train. But I think that would be something that would be nice to get a rematch from Simon Marcus. But Jason Wilness, the new champion of the world in the middleweight division. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Cage. I'm your host, Jim Graham. Now joining me on the line, we have a special guest. He is fresh off his victory at Glory 33. He is Chi Lewis-Parry. And Chi, thanks for coming back on Beyond the Cage.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you for having me back.
Let's get to your fight there at Glory 33. You were taking on injury replacement Anthony MacDonald. Of course, you were originally supposed to rematch Xavier Vigny. Was that a disappointment to you to not be able to rematch Xavier there in New Jersey?
You know what? It was a very anticlimactic event for me. Just in the sense that I really did want to get that rematch back, and it fell through. But the most important thing was I got to fight. That was important for me. I know that both fights were back to back, and that was important for me because I had so much time off. It'd been like just over a year since I'd fought for Glory, and it'd been a rough year because I hadn't competed whatsoever. So I wasn't too fussed. I mean, I was disappointed, of course, because I do want to kind of get that one back, but it wasn't as I say the be all and end all, because I still got to compete. And it didn't really matter who it was against, to be completely honest with you.
Now, when you stepped inside the ring against Anthony MacDonald in the first round, it seemed like you really were trying to kind of figure out what he was doing. He was throwing a lot of body kicks to you. That seemed to be his biggest weapon against you. And after the first round, you really amped it up in the second, especially with your knees. Was that kind of your game plan coming into the fight, to kind of see what he was going to give you considering the short notice, or is that just kind of how the fight evolved for you?
Right. So I've explained this a couple of times, and people don't really know because I mean, you're not there. You only see what the broadcast shows. But there was a lot of drama leading up to that. Just before the fight, I didn't get to warm up. I didn't get my gloves. I had to sort my own gloves out, because the gloves don't fit. The new Glory gloves don't fit my hands. I've got big hands. I'm a big guy. There's a lot of big guys there, but I've got particularly big hands, very wide hands. And they didn't fit, so I'm standing back there. I'm waiting for gloves. I don't get any. My hands are all wrapped. I don't get to warm up. I mean, obviously, it was quite stressful, to be honest with you. So I came out with a different mindset. My mindset was pretty much, I didn't fear anything that MacDonald had. There was nothing, regardless of him being short notice, I just didn't fear him. I felt like I'd already won the fight psychologically. So, not to sound disrespectful or anything, I just wanted to try and get in his head. And I just said, I'll stand there and I'll take whatever he's got. And I was talking to him a lot. And if you watch the first round, you might even be able to pick up some of the audio. I was talking a lot, trying to get him to fall into my trap, and he did. And I knew on a short notice like that, he wasn't going to be particularly stable with his cardio. And let me just see what he's got. Kind of try and make it more of a show than a challenge for myself. And in the second round, I just said, I sat in the corner, and my coach. This is what changed it for me. I was still going to get some ring time in and just see if I could play the game a bit more. And my coach says, "You just lost that round." And when I thought about it logically, technically, I did lose the round because I didn't throw anything. You know, I kind of just stood there and was playing the game. And then I said, oh, you know what? I'm not having that. I'm not losing at anything. So I just decided to turn it up a little bit and start delivering the knees.
Now, that situation with the gloves, have you ever have had that happen to you either in kickboxing or MMA before?
It's happened at Glory before. It happened to me on my debut in Dubai. The gloves, which were Leone before Hayabusa, they were particularly tight. Like I couldn't get my... I've got quite small wrists in ratio to my hand. I've got really wide hands. So if you were to look at my forearm, my wrist, you wouldn't expect my palms to be as wide as they are. So that's just my makeup, my genetic makeup. This is how I am. So those gloves didn't fit, but I had to almost, you know, they weren't laced up properly when I fought in Dubai. I kind of went out there and put that one away in 20 odd seconds. So it didn't really matter. I had the issue again in San Diego, but we found bigger gloves. Then in Virginia, the gloves were fine. They actually issued me, the first ones they issued me weren't any good, and then we asked for different ones, and they gave us some different ones. Now they've changed the type of glove again, because I believe the issue was that a lot of fighters were complaining that they felt like they were holding pillows, like they felt that the glove was too big, so they weren't getting any finishes. And I think that's nonsense. You either hit hard or you don't. You know, I fight with those ones that fighters are complaining like pillows, and I'm knocking people out. So I think they've changed the design now, so there's less of a pillow effect, if you want to call it. But I like the pillow effect, so I'm going to keep that one. If the other ones, the new ones, are not going to fit me, then I'll keep the pillow effect ones, and I'll just keep doing what I do with those. No excuses, baby.
Now, it seemed also in the main event, Anderson Silva and Rico Verhoeven had some problems with the gloves too, because they both were wearing the white Glory gloves when, of course, one's supposed to wear black, one's supposed to wear white. So is this hopefully a theme that gets sorted out pretty quickly, at least for you and some of the other competitors?
Well, I actually spoken to Hayabusa, and they're going to sort it out specifically for the heavyweights. So there's not going to be, I don't think there's going to be that issue anymore. And let's face it, you don't want to have to worry about that before a fight. Luckily, I think that there's a lot of big guys in Glory. Big guys, big wide, big tall, you know. Rico is a particularly thick-set individual. He's a big, very, very big guy. He's like 6'5", but he's just thick. You know, look at his legs, they're massive. It's the same with his hands. He's got very big hands. So I don't know how he fit his hands in there, and I didn't fit mine. So maybe his aren't as wide. But I know he's a very thick-set man. And his gloves, yeah, he managed to wear white gloves, but they weren't the same as mine, because my ones were from with the type style of glove that I'd worn in Virginia. Because I have a few pairs of those that I use either for training. I have a few pairs I haven't worn. I have pairs from other fights. So they're I'm set. I'm good when it comes to gloves. But those ones, I have no idea how he fit his hands in there. But yes, I think the situation will no longer be a situation in the future.
I wanted to get your thoughts on some of the other fights that happened there in New Jersey. Of course, the main event of the Super Fight Series was Simon Marcus against Jason Wilness for the middleweight championship. What did you think of the, I'm using air quotes here, you can't see me, but the knockdown call there at the end of the second round with Simon in the corner?
Yeah, I don't think that was a knockdown, personally. That I watched it again the other day, and I don't think it was a knockdown. I believe, Wilness hit him, but he didn't knock him down. You know, it was like a slip. So he got the knockdown. But at the end of it all, it's still, that doesn't change. If it was a knockdown or not, that doesn't change the outcome of the fight, because Simon did get hurt. You know, so I don't think that knockdown had anything to do with it.
Do you think, though, regardless of any tournament or format, that Simon should get a rematch against Jason Wilness because of that error?
I mean, I think he should get a rematch because he was he's a dominant fighter. You know, he was not anything to do with the era. I just think he has earned with his career, especially within Glory. The guy comes to fight. You know, we was actually having dinner the night before the fights. We went out to eat, his team and my team, and talking to him. He is a true what you call a martial artist. You know, he lives this sport. This you can just see in his physique that he does not take anything more serious than this art, and you've got to respect that. So, and then the guy was the champ. You know, as far as I was concerned, he beat Artem Levin twice, well 3 times, but he beat him, in San Diego, and got that controversial draw. So I think a guy like that, he deserves a shot, especially being the champ. You know, he's defended his belt. He deserves a shot. It'd be a trilogy for Marcus and Wilnis, and it'd be good. It'd be really good. You know, they're 1-1. You always want to see the third fight, right?
Absolutely. And looking at some of the other fights on the card, obviously a guy that, even though he had over 40 professional kickboxing bouts, was making his Glory debut and really hadn't fought too many on the big world stage, that being the Canadian Matt Embry, who knocked out Lim, and then a very good fighter in Giga Chikazi in the final to win the tournament. That had to be pretty impressive to watch, right? A kid like that just coming out of nowhere.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know what? We spent the whole day on Wednesday together doing our medicals up in Pennsylvania, and he's just a cool kid. You know, didn't really know what to expect from him. He's just fun. He's talking to everybody. He's very social, and I did not expect that demon to come out of him. That animal that he brought in the ring. So he did surprise me. But then you know what? Sometimes that's what you need to do. Is the people that fly under the radar, they don't get seen. You know, he was literally a submarine in the night, and he's a very powerful striker. You see a lot of power in his hands. And to get the stoppages the way he got them, it definitely cemented his presence within Glory.
The co-main events of the evening was in your division, the heavyweight division, so I'm sure you had an eye on this one as Hedzi Jurgis took on Guto Innocence. And Innocence gets the win. It probably wasn't the most impressive performance by either gentleman, but what did you think about that match?
Yeah, I was excited to watch that, actually. Because personally, I like both of those guys. They're pretty cool dudes, and you know, Guto's got that very unorthodox sort of style, and it was good to see it because I'm sure at some point we're gonna have to face. So it's good to see both those guys up close and see how they fight. You know, it's good to see Guto has the Rico and Anderson, to see them. Their speed in real time, you know, not just watching it on video, seeing their size, seeing their reactions when they get hit. And in my opinion, the toughest of those 4 names watching them was Hesdy. You know, that guy, he's actually fought everybody, you know. He's been around the block. He's been around a long time. And, yeah, it wasn't... I thought Hesdy put on a great performance personally, and I think he won that fight. In my opinion, he won that fight. He was pressuring the whole time, and Guto was kind of backing up all the time. He was throwing, but he wasn't hitting anything clean. But he was backing up, you know, and I just feel like the guy that's being the aggressor and is actually trying to finish the fight wins the fight. And the judges obviously feel different in that case.
Obviously, in the main event, of course, you had your eye on as Rico Verhoeven defended his heavyweight championship against Anderson Silva. I remember talking with you before this fight, and you know you were agreeant in the aspect of Silva getting the shot. Did you think Silva was going to put up more of a fight? Because he made Anderson Silva look like a guy who had never fought kickboxing before. I mean, it was a pretty dominant performance by Rico.
Yeah, that was a flawless performance. There was nothing even I couldn't even say anything of detriment. Like it was fabulous performance. There you go, fabulous. That's the word. He looked crisp. He looked clean. He looked sharp. He looked composed. the only thing I could say about Rico was he looked slow. Like, it's slow in the sense that obviously everything was landing, but slower than I had imagined. I imagined him to be like lightning fast, and he wasn't lightning fast. Like, he wasn't as quick as I'd imagined. I was like, oh, you know what? I move quicker than him. So it gave me that sort of mental elevation. But other than that, I can't really fault him. Well, that's not even a fault, you know. Some people are fast, some people are slow, but I can't fault him on that. He sort of demolished Anderson. But then, you know what? I think it's the style of Anderson. Anderson is prepared to take punishment just to get in close, and you can't really do that with someone as big as Rico. Like, as big as he is, as technical as he is, you can't afford to do that. You can't stand there and allow him to get his combinations off, because it's going to be a slow night. And there's a reason Anderson Silva's legs gave out. Is because the size of Rico's legs. If you see his legs in person, you'll understand. It's like a man standing on two trees. Literally, he's got massive legs. So you can't take too many of those, you know. And I think Anderson took, like, the whole first round, he was just getting kicked in that rear leg. So the inevitable happened eventually.
Now, last time we had you on, of course, it was already announced that Rico was going to take on Bader in December. It's now official that it will be in Oberhausen, Germany. With this performance against Silva, does that change your mind at all at what will happen when he does step into the ring against Bader?
Nope, not at all. Because Anderson Silva is not Bader Hari. They're two completely different fighters, completely different animals. It's like a pig and a wild boar. It's two completely different styles, you know. So I just think Bader's style and his aggression is going to win him that fight. It's the aggression, you know. There's something different about Bader. He doesn't come in to just try and point score and let's just see if we can get. He's coming in. He's like, you know what? I want to hurt you. He actually is thinking that. You can see that he's thinking that. I want to hurt you. I don't care about this fight. I want to hurt you. And I think that approach is going to be very problematic for Rico, because Bader's not going to run away. He's not going to back down. That's just his style, you know. That's just the guy he is. Look at who he is outside of the ring. That's who he is. So I stand by my previous prediction, my friends.
Now, of course, you fought back-to-back here at Glory 32, then Glory 33. Glory 34 has already been announced, and they haven't announced any fights, but it will be happening in November in France. Glory 35, and of course, Glory 36 will be the collision with Bader and Rico there. Do you factor in to fight one more time on one of those cards for the rest of the year here, Chai?
Yeah, I definitely want to fight again this year. You know, that would be 3 would be a good number for me. You know, if I could fit in 3, then it kind of sets up something for next year, early next year, you know. So I'm definitely going to go to the collision event. I'll be there. I don't want to miss that. But yeah, I'd like to fight again. I don't know where, or you know, I don't know who. We haven't even discussed that. But I'd definitely like to get another one in for sure.
Now, of course, as you said, you're not sure maybe who you'll take on next. I know, like you said, a fight with Xavier Vigny would still be something you would like, but with your recent performances and other performances, you've shot up to number 6 currently on Glory's website in the heavyweight rankings. Some guys ahead of you, Hedzi Gerges, Jafar Wilness, Benjamin Ajabuji, of course, Gito Inoshansu won, is ranked number 9. If you can't get that fight with Vigny, would someone else there in the top 10 be what you were looking for?
Yeah, it would be it would make sense. It only makes sense to have one of those guys, you know, whoever's above me. I don't see I don't know what the plan is or what Glory's plan is. You know, what they obviously have ideas about what they want to do, but yeah, it would make sense to have one of those guys above me, and then just so I can catapult myself even closer to that champion spot, you know. Because it is a fight. I can see that there's interest in the fight with me and Rico. There isn't many people in the division that he hasn't already beat, you know, or he hasn't already fought, at least in other promotions. So I think where it's a friendly rivalry, I think it's healthy. You know, it's a very healthy rivalry for the sport. And I'd very much like to earn my shot at taking on the so-called. There's some truth in it, but the apparent greatest kickboxer of all time.
I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Chad, because of course he's a former kickboxing champion himself, that being Alistair Overeem. He fought for the UFC heavyweight championship a few weeks ago in Cleveland. He got knocked out in the first round by Stipe Miocic. And I was wondering, just with your experience in kickboxing and mixed martial arts as well, what did you think about Alistair's performance? And, did you think maybe he kind of had a little bit lapse there with that choke attempt that allowed Stipe to turn the tables on him?
I've had this conversation, and I was actually talking to DC about it, because yesterday, the day before, I was like, what sort of approach did Alistair have in mind? Because that wasn't the Alistair that I trained with. That wasn't the Alistair that we all know. That was like seeing a completely different person show up and fight. Right? I mean, I'm not for the whole guillotine pulling guard thing. I'm not for that, because you go from a dominant position to your back, and then look what happens. The guy, you don't get it on properly, and then the guy now is either on top of you, pounding you, or you've got to now figure out how to get up. So I didn't like that. I didn't like what he did. I saw, I think it was a straight left. I think it was, or it was a straight left or something that knocked Stipe down. And from there, you can see Stipe on his way down, the whole time on his way down, until his butt hits the floor, he is out. He is out, and then just like the impact of hitting the floor sort of woke him up. And Alistair, all he had to do was rain a few more blows. So he's a big, strong guy, and he didn't do it. He pulled that guillotine, and I don't know, who knows what was going on in his head before the fight or during the fight. Maybe he wasn't really, maybe he got hit with something that we didn't see, and it changed his whole approach. But I didn't think that was a good performance. And I'm a bit bummed, because I really wanted Alistair to win that belt, And it sucks, but this is the sport. Unfortunately, this is the game, And I'm sure he'll be back. He'll be back. Maybe he'll go back to his previous demolition man state, and start mowing people down again.
He is the Chopper Chi Lewis-Parry. You can follow him on Twitter at RealChopperChai and on Instagram at Chopper_Chai. And once again, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, and I definitely look forward to you stepping back inside the Glory Ring later this year. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure. I'm always happy to be on the show, and I love chopping it up. Thank you. Once again, that was Chopper Chi Lewis-Parry right here on Beyond the Cage.
Once again, that was Chopper Chi Lewis-Parry right here on Beyond the Cage, and thanks to the Chopper, great stuff as always from him. Moving on here in my recap of Glory 33, getting to the main card action that was for the first time ever shown live on ESPN2, not on tape delay. Also, you could watch on replay on ESPN3, the streaming site where it actually started, because if you were watching live, there was a slight delay due to football. Syracuse, I believe, against Louisville kind of delayed the start of the broadcast, so you actually picked it up at the co-main event, so you actually got to watch the last three fights live. The ratings were pretty good from being live, and better than any other Glory broadcast on tape delay, and I think that says something. I think that says that you gotta stuff's got to be live, and if you get live, you maybe get people that watch that football game, left it on, and just go, hey, what's this? Oh, this is cool. Well, let me check more of this out. So, was unfortunate that the two fights got cut off, because they were fantastic, especially the fight with Matt Embry, which I'll get to here in a moment. But I think this is a lesson, hopefully, and we'll see what it does here for Bellator kickboxing. And just a second, I don't get the tape delay. It happened last weekend in Turkey. It's now going to be shown this Friday on Spike, the 23rd of September. I don't get it. Results have come out. I mean, there was not only that, there was very little fanfare. very little promotion on social media as well as through television commercials. You would think last weekend on Bellator you would start seeing ads like next weekend, Bellator Kickboxing. Didn't hear hardly any of that. They just kept on talking about Chael Sonnen. I mean, with good reason. Chael Sonnen is a huge name for Bellator to get. Definitely going to bring a lot of eyeballs to their product. But if you want this kickboxing thing to work, it's the same company. Got to have more cross-promotion with MMA, because that's what you're trying to do, is drawing your fan base from MMA, also watching kickboxing. And I don't know. Hopefully Bellator rights the ship, and I think this, again, the Glory thing wasn't on Glory's side. It was ESPN holding back the footage. I mean, it was always streamed live, which is good. At least there was always a way to watch it live. But actually putting on ESPN2 live, I think, is a great thing, and I hope it continues moving on, and hopefully we'll see good numbers increase, especially by the time we get to Rico and Bader. I think numbers will be huge for that. They keep on building hype and stuff for that. I mean, they're already putting the Collision logos and stuff inside the Glory ring, so I hope that's a good deal, and I hope that builds to a crescendo, and ESPN can finally realize that, hey, this is a fun sport. People are going to like this if you show it when it's supposed to be shown live. All right, getting to the main card, featherweight tournament for Glory 33 for the best featherweights in Glory. The first tournament fight was former featherweight champion Sergey Adamchuk, as he took on one of my favorite fighters to watch in Giga Chikadze. And this is a fight I've wanted for a while. Obviously, I thought it would happen with Adamchuk being the champion, but it comes here as part of the featherweight tournament for Glory 33. Just an overall excellent fight. I definitely thought that Giga got the win. I think round one was very even. Both guys were throwing a lot of combinations, but I probably would have gave it to the former champion in Adamchuk. And in the second round, I thought Giga was doing a little more, landing a little more damage. Adamchuk was. It seems like when he doesn't, I don't know. Sometimes he lacks a little killer instinct, even though he has great combinations. And if he's not able to get off to a great start, it seems like it's hard for him to come back. I would say that's kind of the only flaw in his game. And entering round three, I thought, again, both guys, I think, were a little tired. They took some shots. Both guys were landing a lot of good kicks to the body. But I thought, again, Giga was being a little more aggressive, was throwing more out there. And while I thought it was a close fight, a fight that I thought maybe Adamchuk stole. I think in the third round, despite being Giga a little more aggressive, I thought Adamchuk actually was countering effectively, figured out that third round. I thought was going to get the win, but it was a close fight. You know, both guys landed a lot of damage, was very active. We're definitely fighting like there wasn't another 3 rounds afterwards. And the split decision victory went to Giga Chikadze. Somewhat of an upset, you could say, even though Giga is definitely very talented. A fight that I would love to see run back when there's not like a tournament style format, maybe part as a co-main event, which could happen now at some point. Obviously, both fighters, Adamchuk trying to get back to the title, Giga trying to win it for the first time. But incredible fight, was really everything I could hope for. And Adamchuk just back-to-back losses after winning his first 5 fights in Glory, including capturing the championship with one successful title defense over the Jaguar at Glory 28. So he'll be back. Both guys will be back. Just a little bit of a rough patch there for Adamchuk, but just he's going to have to learn how to kind of amp it up and go more for the finish. At times, like I said, he can kind of, if he can get a 1 or 2 round lead on you, you're not going to come back on him. His combinations are usually too flawless, and he's really good at avoiding damage. But if you can kind of throw him off his rhythm a little bit, sometimes you can catch him off his game and you can seal the decision. I kind of feel that's what's happened these last 2 fights. Well, Varga obviously knocked him down too, but I think that's a key and one of the reasons why both Chikadze and Varga were able to get wins over the man from Ukraine. Looking at the other tournament semifinal, you had Glory newcomer Matt Embry taking on one of Glory's top 10 fighters and longtime veteran of the sport coming out of South Korea in Shin Bin Lim, who's despite being one of the top 10 guys, had a kind of a rough go so far in Glory. He fought first at Glory 8, lost to Yuta Kubo in Tokyo. Hadn't fought in Glory until Glory 26, which I believe was a part of a featherweight tournament then. Lost to the Jaguar Musab Amrani, which is, no shame losing to a guy as talented as Amrani. And take on Matt Embry, who, despite having an overall impressive record coming into this tournament at 37-7, obviously still not as much experience as Lim, who came into the fight with a record of 69-18. But unknown to the really big stage of global kickboxing, and like I said, had never fought in Glory before, so I wasn't sure what to expect. I thought Lim, being the veteran, he's been in Glory before, he's been in these tournaments before, I thought would have a lot better performance against a guy that, despite good experience, hadn't fought a lot of top level guys, and that was not the case. I mean, Matt Embry just put together combinations after combinations. He was throwing them fast and furious, and Lim there was no bounce to his movement. He really wasn't cutting angles. He wasn't really moving his head. Really almost no offense to speak of. I'm not sure really what his game plan was against Matt Embry, but he didn't really show up to me, and Matt Embry just dominated him, and eventually was landing just combination after combination, especially with that left hand, and eventually dropped the Korean and finished him there in the second round to move on to the final. And a final where initially I thought the winner, Adamchuk and Chikazi, would probably win handily, whether Lim or Embry advanced to the final. But after the war Chikazi had and the way Embry just dispatched Lim so quickly, Embry was going to be the fresher fighter despite fighting second. And, actually he fought first, I should say. But he only went to the second round, had a very dominant performance, has a lot of confidence with her, where Chikazi had a 9-minute war with Adamchuk, obviously had less time to prepare. So, obviously that, I think, probably didn't help Chikazi, but Embry just was on a roll. He pretty much continued that same assault, and Chikazi, not a guy that likes to go backward and counter, guy that likes to come forward, was still throwing that same style despite the damage he took against former champion Adamchuk, and Embry just kept on bringing it and eventually did get a knockout. Very similar, a little more competitive this time, but I think Chikazi, again, a fight I'd like to see run back when it wasn't part of a tournament, but that's the tournament. That's how it goes. You got to be prepared to fight a potential 6 rounds. And Matt Embry was ready to go, and to me, kind of shocked the kickboxing world, winning this tournament and beating a guy the caliber of Chikazi and knocking him out. Awfully impressive. He now has a shot at the featherweight championship, where potentially he could face fellow Canadian Gabriel Varga, depending on how that fight goes next month in Denver, as Varga defends his title. He tries to defend his title again, this time against former lightweight champion Robin van Roosmalen. So Embry has crossed paths with Varga before. I couldn't find his full list out of all his 40 kickboxing matches, but it appears as though he has fought Varga at some point in time, and he would like a shot at redemption against the now Glory champion. So that is something I'm looking forward to. Embry also does some mixed martial arts as well. So this is a guy that, man, has just come out of nowhere, and I'm very impressed with him, and he made a fan out of me. And if you hadn't seen his performance live or on ESPN3, look it up. It was absolutely incredible. I believe it will be on the Glory YouTube channel eventually. But just a very excellent performance against some tough guys, and Embry was able to take him out with back-to-back second-round knockouts. Co-main event of the evening was in the heavyweight division, as Hedzi George's longtime veteran of the sport took on Guto Inosanche, and not a great fight. This was the only fight of the night where I was not really exciting, in my opinion. Inosanche gets his 3rd consecutive victory in Glory since debuting at Glory 27, and Hedzi, to me, just took a long time to get going, in my opinion. And Inosanche was really kind of peppering with shots, but you could tell, Hedzi obviously being the much bigger guy for the heavyweight division, was eating the shots, taking, nothing extremely hard. The spinning stuff and crazy stuff that Inoshant likes to throw wasn't really bothering Hedzi, but it took him a while to get going because Inoshant was the much faster guy. And to me, Hedzi really put it all together in the third round when he started seeing Inoshant slowing down because all the shots and effort he was putting in weren't affecting Hedzi, and Hedzi was able to kind of come forward, land some nice powerful shots. You could see the power difference in the two from the start, but really apparent in that third round. I thought Hedzi took the third, but didn't do enough. Was having a hard time chasing Inoshant in the first 2 rounds, and no surprise to me that Inoshant gets the win. It wasn't as impressive as some of his other victories, that being Inoshant's, but definitely with the win, he puts himself up there in the heavyweight division. And Hedzi, at least in glory, a little bit of a rough spot now, losing his last 3 fights, 2 of them being to really good competitors in Benjamin Ajibouge and Ismail Lant, but definitely something, I don't know what he's got to do. He is towards the end of his career. Not saying he has to retire, but definitely he might have to, maybe go back to the drawing board on a few things, try to pick up that output, maybe work on conditioning a little bit or something, because that's kind of faltered him in his last 2 fights, the conditionings. In this fight, as well as the fight there against Ismail Lant. Took him a while to get going, and that'll be something I have to work on. When it was all said and done with all the rankings stuff, of course, we'll get to the heavyweight title fight in just a minute. Inoshant now moves to number 9. Hedzi drops to number 5. Chi Lewis-Parry shoots up to number 6 in the glory rankings. So, while Xavier Vigny was supposed to take on Chi Lewis-Parry, with Vigny's being inactive for a while, maybe Chi will have his eyes set on somebody else. Of course, I talked about that in the interview, but anything can happen. That could be a fight that still plays out, but now maybe we see Chi take on someone even higher, like a Milan Brestovich or Jafar Wilness, possibly a Inoshant or Anderson Silva. There are a lot of options now, but heavyweight division, I think, is a little more interesting than people give it credit for. And getting to the king of the heavyweight division, Rico Verhoeven, just an absolute dominant performance over Anderson Silva as he sets the glory record for most consecutive victories now with 11. Has only lost 1 ever fight in glory. That was back at Glory 4 as part of a tournament to Slemmy Schilt, and just has been absolutely dominant since that point in time. And the fight against Silva, no offense to Silva, but he was going to have a tough go. He said he was going to try to make it a street fight and get inside, but that's not. If you're going to do that, you got to have way more output. You can't do what Anderson Silva did. Just not a very impressive performance by Silva, but an equally impressive performance by Rico Verhoeven, and ended it with leg kicks. Just it was a flawless victory. Anderson Silva he looked like a nobody compared to Rico Verhoeven, and that's not the case. Anderson Silva's been one of the longtime guys in Glory's heavyweight division, finally got a shot and just looked completely outclassed in this matchup. And, of course, Verhoeven's getting ready for a fight against Badr Hari. And Badr, he's going to make it a street fight, but he's going to do it a lot better than that. At least I hope so, because if he doesn't, he's going to get wrecked. He's got to be prepared, because Verhoeven is just, technically, he's the best out there. His combinations are amazing. He knows how to avoid damage too. That was just a flawless victory there by Verhoeven. Sets up, for glory's sake, he didn't get hurt and he didn't look bad. So it really sets up that big collision in December. And of course, if he gets by that, he should be taking on Ismail Lant, his fellow countryman from the Netherlands, at some point, who earned a right at the heavyweight championship earlier this year. So that's got to happen at some point. So Verhoeven has a lot of work ahead of him if he wants it. I know he's expressed interest in. He's been boxing with the current heavyweight champion Tyson Fury. He's talked about boxing. He's talked about doing MMA. He's doing a lot of other things. But as far as his glory commitments go, he's booked pretty solid. So if you want, and Glory obviously doesn't want to lose him. He's one of their bigger stars. So want to keep him around as all as possible. But yeah, it was just a flawless victory by Rico Verhoeven. There's really not much more than say that he was able to do everything he wanted to do and dispatch Anderson Silva fairly quickly for us to get Rico Botter in December, barring any weird sort of injury. So, Glory 33, fantastic. I can't wait for Glory 34 coming up in December. Should be a really good night. A lot of American fighters, a lot of guys we've had on the show before. Dustin Jacoby, Casey Green, Richard Abraham. Also the fight there between Van Roosmalen and Gabriel Varga. I'm interested to see how Van Roosmalen does down the 11 pounds, taking on Varga. So should be an interesting night. More fights have yet to come out for Glory 34, so stay tuned for that. And, of course, we'll talk about it when it happens. So once again, thanks to Chi Lewis-Parry for coming on the show and talking about his victory there at Glory 33 over Anthony MacDonald. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jim Graham, on Instagram at the Jim Graham, and also you can like Beyond the Cage at facebook.com/Beyond the Cage podcast. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe to our channel right here on YouTube, youtube.com/Beyond the Cage podcast. And once again, that was Glory 33, and thanks for listening to another edition of Beyond the Cage.